Mr. Chair, the floor is yours. You have it.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to call to order the Planning Commission meeting for Wednesday, February 24th, 2021. It is now 6:34. Determination of quorum. Mr. Reyes,
Yeah.
Mr. Kinney,
Here.
Mr. Poselli,
Here.
Mr. Anderson,
Here.
Mr. Mattson.
In attendance.
Is Mr. Ozakowski with us?
Here.
Okay, Jason. Secretary Lukowitz,
Here.
Vice Chair Colonian,
Here.
and Chairman Flynn is here. We have a full 9 board tonight. We have a full quorum.
Mr. Flynn, could you give me a second, please?
Absolutely.
Mr. Wazika, could you make me co-host so I can bring Heather Finger in, who is
You
our
already are,
stenographer
sir.
this evening?
You are co-host already.
And how do I bring her in? Oh, promote to panelist.
You got it. You're learning, Grasshopper.
Let me see. There she is.
When you can.
Hi, Heather.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
I have a,
Thank you, Ron. I'm all set.
all right. Okay, we did the quorum. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance.
To the flag
United States of America.
America.
and to the republic for which it stands,
And
One nation.
under God,
God, indivisible,
indivisible, liberty.
liberty and justice for all.
we're all.
For all. Thank you. Okay, before I go to election of officers, I would ask the board if I could move a few things around on the agenda. Number 8.2. I'd like to move after the meeting minutes, so it would be after 5.1. That's the letter from Mr. Kalaluka. Also, number 7.1, the public informational meeting that's been continued. I'd like to move before 8.4 on the agenda. If that's okay with the board, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion made by Mr. Mattson, second by Mr. Reyes. Any discussion? Okay, I'll do a roll call. Mr. Reyes,
Aye.
Mr. Kenny,
Aye.
Mr. Pacelli,
Hey.
Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Mr. Mattson,
Aye.
Mr. Ozakowski,
Aye.
Ms. Lukowitz,
Aye.
Mr. Colonian.
Aye.
Chairman Flynn also says aye. Okay, first on the agenda is election of officers. Let's do secretary first. Anybody would like to make a motion for secretary? To nominate a secretary.
I'd
I'd like to nominate Sandy Lukowitz.
Okay, I have a nomination. Do I
I'll
have
second it.
I have a second by Mr. Reyes. Anybody else interested in secretary? All right, seeing none. I have a motion. I have a second. I'll do a roll call. Mr. Reyes,
Aye.
Mr. Kenny,
Aye.
Mr. Poselli,
Hey.
Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Mr. Mattson,
Aye.
Mr. Ozakowski,
Aye.
Mr. Colonian,
Aye.
Mr. Flynn also, Chairman Flynn also says aye. Okay, Sandy, you are remaining as secretary.
Thank you.
Okay, I will need a nomination now for vice chair.
I nominate Mr. Cooley for vice chair.
I have a nomination by Mr. Pacelli. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Who's the second from?
Carl.
Okay, Mr. Mattson, second. Anybody else interested in vice chairman? Hearing none, I'll do a roll call. Mr. Reyes,
Aye.
Mr. Kenny,
Aye.
Mr. Poselli,
Yeah.
Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Mr. Mattson,
Aye.
Mr. Ozakowski,
Aye.
Ms. Lukowitz,
Aye.
Chairman Flynn also says aye. Okay, Rick, your vice chair. I'll also entertain a motion for chairman.
I can make a motion for Ron Flynn.
I'll second it.
Chair.
Hey, Rick, you want to take that over? Or do I do my own?
Do your
Rick, you're
own.
muted.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Pacelli. I have a second by Mr. Mattson. I'll do a roll call. Mr. Reyes,
Aye.
Mr. Kenny,
Aye.
Mr. Pacelli,
Aye.
Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Mr. Mattson,
Aye.
Mr. Ozakowski,
Aye.
Ms. Lukowitz,
Aye.
and Mr. Colonian.
Aye.
Hey, thank you for your support. I'm nothing without you.
Seems a little self-serving to do it that way there, Mr. Flynn.
We have to move on.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Okay, number 5 is approval of minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second it.
I have a motion by Mr. Kenny. I have a second by, who
Mr.
seconded?
Reyes.
Mr. Reyes.
Okay. I'll do a roll call on the minutes. Mr. Reyes,
Aye.
Mr. Kenny,
Aye.
Mr. Porcelli,
Aye.
Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson,
You're muted, Glenn.
Was muted, aye.
Mr. Mattson,
Aye.
Mr. Ozakowski,
Aye.
Ms. Lukowitz,
Aye.
Mr. Colonian.
Aye.
Chairman Flynn also says aye, so the minutes are approved. Okay, next on the agenda, I have to recuse myself from that. So Rick, do you want to take over? I moved 8.2, the letter from Mr. Kalaluka. And that's up now.
Yes, okay, so before us, we have an extension request. You all have the letter in the packet for master plan approval for Kalaluka Estates. Assessors Plat 60, Lot 56, and Assessors Plat 68, Lot 137.1 in the R20 zone located at Metro Drive and Diane Drive. Is there anyone here for the applicant? I know there is.
Yes, John.
Okay. And I guess, I don't know, do you want, I guess the letter kind of speaks to itself, but do you have anything you want to add? What you got?
No, I'd just like to seek an extension for the development Kalaluka Estates.
We have a motion to extend.
So moved.
Second it.
I'm sorry, who was that? James Kenny made the motion, Richard Porcelli second.
Aye.
Yes.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none. I'll call the roll. Mr. Reyes,
Aye.
Mr. Porcelli,
Yes.
Mr. Mattson,
Aye.
Mr. Ozakowski,
Aye.
Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Secretary Lukowitz,
Aye.
and I vote aye. I didn't miss anybody, did I?
Mr. Kenny says aye as well.
Thank you, Mr. Kenny. There's too many
Sure.
squares tonight. And I don't have a list. Okay, you're all set, John.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
Yep.
Okay, next on number 6 is a ratification of a decision on Woodland Manor 3 owner HK Woodland 3 LLC applicant Halkeen Management. Ratification of an approved amended master plan comprehensive permit for proposed 92-unit residential development that would include 92 affordable units in the Woodland Manor apartment complex. AP 27 lot 150, zone plan unit development PUD with total property area approximately 19.2 acres. It's on Woodland Drive. Is anybody here for that applicant?
Ron, there's no one here for the applicant. It's just a ratification.
Okay, so I need a motion to ratify.
Motion to ratify by Carl.
I have a motion by Kyle. Do I have a second?
Second by Mr. Kenny.
I have a second by Mr. Kenny. Any discussion? Okay, I'll do a roll call. Mr. Reyes,
Aye.
Mr. Kenny,
Aye.
Mr. Porcelli,
Aye.
Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Mr. Mattson,
Aye.
Mr. Ozakowski,
Aye.
Ms. Lukowitz,
Aye.
Mr. Colonian,
Aye.
and Chairman Flynn says aye. Okay, Woodland Manor is ratified. Okay, we're gonna move past 7.1. We move that. So we're gonna go right to number 8, new business for discussion and/or action. It's a concept review meeting for Steve's Bounce House, owner Commerce Park Realty LLC, attorney Matthew J. McGovern, receiver, applicant P&R Properties LLC, proposed 1,000 square foot office building and 2 5,000 square foot storage buildings, AP 5 lot 14-2 zone BP with a total property area of 1.4 acres. It's in Center New England Boulevard. Is anybody here representing the applicant?
Yes, Douglas Allen with Crossman Engineering.
Hi, how you doing?
Hello, good evening.
Also, Glenn Robinson for Steve's Bounce House, attorney Glenn Robinson for Steve's Bounce House.
And Steve Ross.
Hi, Steve. Would somebody like to just, for the board, just tell us what the concept is?
I'll go ahead. The proposed improvements include the construction of a new 1,000 square foot office building, 2 5,000 square foot storage buildings, and we're gonna have one new access from the center of New England and a secondary one-way access in that will be for deliveries only. The improvements will include sidewalks within the site and new sidewalks along the center of New England Boulevard. We'll have new parking, new drainage, new landscaping along the frontage, and connection of all new utilities, including sanitary, sewer, water, electric, and communication. It's currently surrounded by a vacant parcel to the west and an existing detention parcel to the east. It's an undeveloped piece of land right now. It's consists of gravel and brush and woodlands. There are existing buildings across from the site, and the property, that's it. Like you said, it is a zone business park. We are proposing a 10-foot landscape buffer on the sides and in the rear, and also a 25-foot setback on the sides and the rear. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions by any board members? I'm hearing no questions at all. I do appreciate you for wanting to do business in Coventry. We appreciate any business that comes to the town.
Great, thank you.
I don't see any objections from any board members.
Mr. Chairman, I just had one question.
Go ahead, Rick.
If we could just go back to the site plan, what's the purpose of the 22-foot separation between the office and the building to the rear? I mean, does that 22-foot alleyway serve a purpose because of the garage? Is it just?
We were really just keeping access around the building, so if someone came out, they could get around the building versus not having any access and having to come back around the back. That's
Okay.
The entire area is going to be paved.
So you needed it for circulation?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, I don't see anybody else. Does anybody else on the board have any questions for the applicant? He's asking to proceed to the preliminary stage.
I understand it's going to be a bouncy house, one of the buildings, correct?
It's actually, it's all three buildings will be used for the operations of Steve's Bounce House. The office will be administrative. We'll put a number of small rental items. We'll split that up, have a number of small rental items in the office. And then the two 5,000 square foot buildings, we have a number of large water slides, bounce houses, obstacle courses, just a host of different rental items for backyard parties. And the other building we really need for our tent business. We have probably have about 30 or 40 tents, I want to say. We have, with those tents come a number of tables and chairs and other accessories that we do. We do lighting, we have a dance floor. There's a number of things that we need that unit for.
So you're gonna have more entertainment other than just for children. Is that correct?
Well, we specialize in backyard birthday parties, graduation parties, right? School events. We contract with a number of different schools throughout the state of Rhode Island. We do a ton of field days, a number of indoor events. We have a lot of large companies in Rhode Island that come back to us year over year, where they have summer events for their employees. I would say, 95% of our business is delivery set up at a site. We go out, we have box trucks, we go out to sites.
Okay, at the site, are you gonna have something for the children to go to? As a, what am I trying to say?
Sandy, it's a rental. They call up and then they deliver the bounce houses. They're not gonna have anything on site.
There won't be anything on site? Okay.
No, we will not.
Correct.
Yeah, we are not. There's no money to be made there. We don't have any bounce houses that would be set up. No children will be on our no children will be on our property, with the exception of potentially coming in with their parents to pay a deposit or to look at some units. We have a number of different units that we post on our office wall. Some of the children like to come in and look at them. We might have units set up on our property to clean, but that's for strictly employees that are cleaning units. There are no children that will be jumping on our property.
And will the state be monitoring your equipment?
So the state of Rhode Island, there are only a handful of states throughout the United States that actually monitor our type of equipment. But we do have insurance. We have, it's very costly. We have a lot of guidelines around that insurance, where we can't keep units for X amount of years, where we need to stake down units with large, heavy stakes, and where we have commercial units. Those units that you see fly up on TV, those are the small units that mom and pop buys on Amazon. We have large commercial units, and we use heavy equipment to stake these down.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sandy, the other thing I can add is that I've used, when I was the competitive director for Coventry Soccer, I used Steve's bounce houses almost every year when we were putting on events, and they were always professional. They always did a good job. So
Okay, thanks, Jim.
you're welcome.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the board have any questions for the applicant? Okay, because of COVID, we do not do site walks, but anybody on the board would like to do an individual site walk, they can go to the property. Other than that, staff, do I need a motion to proceed to preliminary, or we will just proceed to preliminary?
No, they'll just proceed to preliminary, and if you had any guidance you want to give them, if you were happy with the layout, everything, is there any, if everybody's happy, they'll just proceed to to preliminary.
I don't have any issues. Anybody on the board have any issues with the layout?
No,
Okay, it looks like you're good to go to preliminary.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for your time.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for doing business in Coventry.
Yes, thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Too.
Okay, next on the agenda, 8.3 is recommendation to zoning. It is just a recommendation to the zoning board of review for a special use permit. The address is 333 Reed Schoolhouse Road, owner Christine E. D'Ambra. Applicant is the same. It's a proposed construction of a 20 by 5 farmers porch, resulting in an expansion of a non-conforming structure. That's AP 74, Lot 5, Zone RR2, and the address is 333 Reed Schoolhouse Road. Anybody here representing the applicant?
Hi, I'm Christine.
Benjamin?
Could you speak up just a little bit, please?
Sorry. Hi, I'm Christine.
Hi, Christine, how are you?
How you doing?
Hi.
Hi. Could you just, for the board, just give us a brief summary of what you want to do?
Sure. We are currently in the process, well, we're about 95% done with an addition that we actually came to you in August and had this approved. About 95% done now, but we've since decided we want to add a farmer's porch. We had to go through zoning to get a variance for the side and the frontage. So now we need an additional 5 feet to add a farmer's porch to that. We had only requested a certain number of feet, but now we need an additional 5 to do the farmer's porch.
Yes, I remember, you know. Thank you. Anybody from the board have any questions from the applicant?
Ron?
Go ahead, Rick. I couldn't see you. The map was there.
Sorry, yeah, just for clarification, so I see the addition, was the farmer's porch already proposed for the main house and now there was none at all?
No, this was all thought of after the fact,
And it's gonna go all the way across the entire property or just in front of the addition?
just in front of the addition.
Yeah, it's really gonna be an improvement to the facade, in my opinion, compared to the, based on the sketch that's in front of us, but I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the board? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for a recommendation to zoning.
Mr. Flynn, I'll make a motion. I'd like to make a recommendation to zoning for an approval. Address approval of a farmer's porch added to an existing project that is ongoing at 333 Reed Schoolhouse Road, AP 74, Lot 5, Zone RR2 in a residential area. Applicants seeking a special use permit to construct a 20 by 5 farmer's porch, resulting in an expansion of a non-conforming structure. In essence, they need 5 more feet on a variance from 26 down to 21, so they can construct the porch. The property has a permanent physical access to Reed Schoolhouse Road, and the construction of the proposed expansion will not alter or affect the functionality of the existing driveway. They have sufficient off-street parking. Utilities are pre-existing. The abutting properties and surrounding neighborhood is primarily single-family residential. The proposal is consistent with the Coventry Comprehensive Plan. The granting the special use permit will not affect the health, safety, welfare of this neighborhood. In addition, I would like to add the planning staff report to my motion. Planning
I have
director.
a motion by Mr. Kenny. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Reyes. Any discussion? Okay, I'll do a roll call. Mr. Reyes,
Aye.
Mr. Kenny,
Aye.
Mr. Pacelli,
Here.
Mr. Anderson.
Aye.
Mr. Mattson,
Aye.
Mr. Ozakowski,
Aye.
Ms. Lukowitz,
Aye.
Mr. Colonian,
Aye.
Chairman Flynn also says aye. So the recommendation to zoning is granted.
Thank
Hey,
you.
Ron,
Thank you.
Ron,
Yes,
could I get a clarification from Mr. Pacelli? He said here. Could we just get a clarification whether it was a yay or a nay?
Rich, you're muted.
Mr. Poscali, are you there?
I'm here. What happened?
Mr.
Hello.
Cooper would like a clarification on your answer. Was it a yes or a no?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Okay, motion carries for a favorable recommendation to zoning.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good
Have a
luck.
good evening.
Thank you.
Had a little trouble with the baby, yeah. Wait a minute.
Okay, next, we move 7.1. Bear with me.
8.4.
It's a public informational meeting continued from January 27, 2021. Comprehensive permit for master plan, 445 Fairview Avenue, owner B. Wayne Realty LLC, applicant Pazuko Construction and Company, proposed 10 residential lots with the 25% deemed to be affordable on an existing multi-unit residential parcel consisting of 9 units, AP 63 lot 154, zone R20, with a total property area of approximately 1.5 acres, and that's on 445 Fairview Avenue. Anybody here for the applicant?
Thank you, Mr. Flynn. Attorney
Hi, Mr.
Thomas Cronin, 1070 Main Street, Coventry, Rhode Island. For the applicant, with me is engineer Christopher Duhamel from DePreet Engineering. This is a continuation of a public hearing from last month. We received quite a bit of input from the board with regard to the project. And we've gone back to the drawing board to try to address some of the board's concerns. And I think we've done so with some level of impact that should engage the board in some further discussion. Just to remind the board, 445 Fairview Avenue is an existing 9-unit apartment building, has public water, public sewer, access to the bus line, and access to Fairview Avenue. It's a multifamily home as allowed in an R20 zone with a special use permit. It's one of only 3 zones in town where multifamily is allowed, the others being the village districts. We had come before this board last month requesting 10 new units in 2 buildings of 5 units apiece. Based on the board's input, we've made some significant changes to the plan that we'd like to present tonight. I'll give you a quick overview of what we have changed in the plan, and Mr. Duhamel will talk more to the specifics in case there are any concerns. But in response to the concerns raised by the board, we've added perimeter fencing around the entire subject property other than the driveway. Vegetative buffer has been added along the southern and southwestern boundary. The biggest change is the reduction in the number of units. So we are now proposing 8 units in 2 4-unit buildings. So this will result in the reduction of the building size as well as reduction in the unit size, and it gives a little more area left undisturbed by the building or uncovered by the building. It increases the proposed distances between the buildings, both as proposed and as existing. It increases the distances to the property line and neighboring properties. Reduction in lot coverage and things like that, but probably one of the things that the board would be most interested in hearing is that it results in a favorable parking analysis where the 39 spots originally proposed will remain, so that there'll be the 2 spots required for each unit, and the result will be 5 extra spots on the site to try to relieve some of those parking concerns that have been raised. On the affordable units will remain constant, still be 3 affordable in the project. And we've provided some details on the exterior construction of the proposed buildings and units at the request of the board. As the board is well aware, I do my best not to give redundant testimony in these things as our evenings are long enough. So I'll ask the board to accept Mr. Duhamel again as a professional engineer and allow him to describe the changes with more detail and accuracy. Is that acceptable to the board, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, it is, Mr. Cronin. Continue.
Mr. Duhamel?
Thank you. My name is Chris Duhamel, professional engineer and land surveyor with DePreet Engineering, located at 2 Stafford Court in Cranston. This is a continuation of the master plan informational hearing that was held last month. We recognized that the board was uncomfortable with the design as presented, and we took that advice and looked to redesign the site as best we could. As Thomas said, the most significant thing that we looked at is reducing the number of units on site. We proposed 10 2-bedroom apartments, and working with Mr. Ron Pizzuko and Rich Pizzuko, we reduced that number to 8 2-bedroom apartments. The apartments themselves have been redesigned previously. The 2 buildings were 100 feet long by 31 feet in depth. Now the 2 buildings are reduced to 64 feet long and 38 feet in depth. The reduction in length is significant in that it opens up the site where there was most concern with the adjacent property to the west, the Pinone site. The units, again, as I should say, have been redesigned. The Pizzucos have hired Union Studios, who are renowned architects and urban planners, and they've come up with a design for the individual apartments to be about 900 square feet on a smaller footprint, 16 foot by 32 foot and 16 foot by 38 foot are the, 16 by 36 and 16 by 38 are the 2 different sizes. And they both range from 897 to 900 square foot in size. The townhouse designs with 2 floors. The 2 bedrooms are located on the 2nd floor, and the facade of the house has a more architectural flair than what we had proposed in the last submission, with peaked arch roofs to be more in conforming with the residential look of Coventry. So the buildings are smaller. We provided the same amount of parking. We didn't reduce the amount of parking, but we were able to have greater separation in between the 2 proposed buildings. Now, before we had 24'7" in between the 2 proposed buildings, and with a smaller footprint, we can now increase that to 51 feet 3 inches between the 2 proposed buildings. The separation from the most northerly building or northwestly building and the existing building is roughly 30 feet, 31 feet apart. 40 foot is considered minimum from end to end of existing buildings, so that would still require a waiver. 51.3 from end to end to the 2 proposed buildings would no longer require a waiver. The new buildings to the west property lines are previously designed at 20-foot minimum, equaling what a residential setback would be, but a multifamily setback is 40-foot minimum. We've been able to increase the separation to the west, to the Panado property. We proposed 29.5 feet on the most northerly parcel as a separation. That equals a 26% reduction of the 40 foot minimum. And we provided 37.2 foot separation. That equals a 7% reduction in the 40 foot minimum. We have a favorable letter from the south, from the Granham Smith property that had no objection to allowing for 20-foot setback. So we were able to keep that building tight on that property line and then to have a greater separation to the Pernado property. The parking ratios, although we have 5 extra parking spaces, 39 spaces total. Before we had a ratio of 2.05 spaces per unit. Now we have a ratio of 2.29 spaces for the 17 units. Other commitments that we made from the last meeting that are unchanged by this submission is having a 6-foot high privacy fence along the Smith and Pernado property and along the perimeter of the property. We also would include a landscaping buffer along that privacy fence. All drainage would be handled on site as required by RIDM, by the town of Coventry, that we would meet the pre-development runoff in volume for the 2 to 100-year storms as required. No deviation from that is requested. Safe access and egress to the site would exist. We would apply to the DOT for a physical alteration permit that would look at the existing access, not modifying it, but there's a new change of use that would be provided. We would provide a traffic analysis at that point. The new 8 units would generate at PM peak 5 trips per hour, which is insignificant at best. But we would provide that analysis to the DOT, and we provide the safe stopping distance analysis, which is we exceed the minimum safe stopping distance looking both north and south on Fairview Avenue. That would be provided to the DOT for approval, and once that approval is in hand, we would provide that to the town of Coventry for their review as well. So we would have safe access to the site. The site is already serviced by public utilities, public water, public sewer, and the 8 units would be an extension of those existing services. And we would seek approval from the town of Coventry Sewer Authority and the Kent County Water Authority for those, so that there is adequate services that exist for the development and the site. And the site is within the urban service area. It does have a bus service available to it for the affordable components that are being proposed. We have 3 affordable homes that have been approved by RI Housing, and we'll have 5 market rate now as opposed to the previous submission. So we feel we've listened closely to what the concerns of the neighborhood and the board were raised, and we hope that you see it as such and grant us approval of the revised plan.
Mr. Crossman, I believe that we submitted the architectural drawings of the proposed units. Could we just view those? Is that possible?
Can you see them now?
No.
Okay. Hold on a minute. How's that, sir? Can you see that?
I can, thank you. So, Mr. Crossman, this is apparently showing us the rear of the buildings. There's the front. They look similar, front and rear. But as Mr. Duhamel mentioned, the architectural renderings of the proposed buildings have been detailed and are improved from our last visit. One thing that I would like to mention is that the depth of the front of the building is variant, so that it's not flat across the front. Some units are further back from the parking area than the front, so that it gives a less of a flat front and a little more character and visual appeal, in addition to providing the benefits mentioned by Mr. Duhamel in his presentation. So I just wanted to point out the visual improvement as well, in addition to the space gained in this plan. I thank you, Mr. Crossman. I appreciate that. Mr. Flynn, we're available to answer any questions. We're not going to reintroduce Mr. Lombardo or address the comprehensive plan or the level of affordable housing in the town of Coventry. Again, that information was provided at the last meeting and hasn't changed in a month. So if the board or the public has any questions with regard to the changes we've made to this plan, Mr. Duhamel and I will attempt to address them. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Cronin, thank you. I believe your team did address a lot of this board's concerns. You know, the rendition that I'm looking at right now is very nice. Is there anybody on the board that have any additional questions for Mr. Cronin on this project?
I just have one. Are
ahead.
there decks on the back of those buildings? We kind of glossed over them and I got my plan set late.
Rick, I'll bring up the architecturals again.
Mr. Duhamel, can you respond to that question, please?
I did not decks or porches at this point. Decks are not part of the footprint.
Yep, that's fine. The reason I asked is if you go by the other side of the existing building on Black Rock Road and look between the houses, the decks aren't too appealing to the neighbors. So I was curious to see how this one was going to pan out. And I didn't get a chance to analyze these. I didn't even realize they were emailed to me till after 5 o'clock. So sure, that's fine. So basically those are just closed entryways.
Yeah, we'll work closely with our landscape architect on making certain that back area it remains private with a 6-foot solid privacy fence and the landscaping that would buffer that as well. Make certain that we're not creating any additional.
And those portions of the buildings that do how would I say it? Come off the back of the houses, that's factored into the setbacks that were shown on your plan, correct?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
You all set, Rick?
Actually, I have 2 follow-ups, and I think they went from the other meeting, and I just want to make sure we clarify. I know you said you were going for a physical alterations permit. The Department of Public Works had a couple of comments, and one was, and I don't think you'll object, to a stop sign at the exit to Fairview Avenue.
Okay.
And you will either pitch or otherwise crown the impervious layers parking lot and that other pad there that we had for the turnaround for the fire truck, so that all of the storm water is retained on site and nothing sheet flows into Fairview Avenue or into the neighborhood.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else from the board have any questions for the applicant? Okay, hearing none. Mr. D'Agostino, I believe we left the last meeting. I did close public hearing. Do you feel it's necessary to reopen?
I don't feel it's necessary to reopen, but you are welcome to vote to reopen public hearing if that's what you wish.
I don't feel it. I mean, I feel that all the questions and complaints.
Ron, I have people with their hands raised. With all due respect, I really think we should reopen the public hearing.
I have no problem reopening public hearing.
I'm just saying, we got to give these people, they should be allowed to speak.
Okay,
Especially since there was a new plan submitted.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, it's a matter of fairness, I think.
I can't see the hands up, so that's fine. I have no problem with opening the public hearing. We did discuss it last month. So I'll entertain a motion to reopen public hearing.
Motion to reopen public hearing by
I have
Carl.
a motion by Mr. Mattson. Do I have a second?
Second by Mr. Kenny.
Second by Mr. Kenny. I'll do a roll call. Mr. Ray's.
Mr. Chair, just under discussion, could we just make sure that the comments we receive aren't redundant to the last meeting? You know, if
Yes.
people have something new to offer, or limit the testimony maybe to 3 minutes, just so we can, you know, I don't want to go rehash every single thing we went over the last time when the plan seems to be, you know, if it's something different. I appreciate the comments that the neighbors would make.
I appreciate that, Mr. Clooney, and I was going to suggest no redundancy, but I do agree with staff that it is only fair that the people can comment on this, on the revised project.
Yeah.
So I'll do a roll call again. Mr. Ray's,
Aye.
Mr. Kenny,
Aye.
Mr. Porcelli,
Aye.
Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Mr. Mattson,
Aye.
Mr. Ozakowski,
Aye.
Ms. Lukowitz,
Aye.
Mr. Clooney,
Aye.
Chairman Flynn also votes aye. Okay, public hearing is now open. Go ahead, Russ.
Okay, I'm gonna bring one in. I'm waiting for Mary to come in. Mary, are you there? Could you please unmute? You're muted, Mary.
Is that better? Okay.
Much
I do
better,
have a,
thank you.
thank you for asking. I just concerned, has anybody addressed the water table issue? How it's going to affect my property? Am I gonna be under?
Hold on a minute, Mary.
Hold on 1 minute. Your name and address, please. Thank you, Heather.
Mary Perry, sorry, 473 Fairview Ave. These meetings, but Coventry. I just wanted to know if they addressed any of the water table issues. Is it going to affect is my property going to become underwater by them removing any of that dirt? I don't want to be swimming.
Thank you for that question. Mr. Duhamel, would you like to take that one?
Certainly, during the design, the final design, or the next preliminary design, if you will, of the drainage, we'd be doing test holes across the site, determining the seasonal high water table and designing any drainage above that, and not increasing the volume or flow off site. It's an in-depth design that's required by DEM, by the town of Coventry, and the effect on abutting property is what the regulations and rules are all about. And I'll certainly be looking at what runoff goes to your property and the groundwater effect, not increasing the groundwater effect either.
Okay, because I want my property to be valuable and not underwater. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And I also have an issue with the snow removal from that property. They plow out onto Fairview Avenue, onto the sidewalk, because they don't have enough room for snow removal, which is against Coventry's ordinance.
That's everybody's ordinance.
And it's kind of trashy over there. It's very trashy. And my car was totaled this week by a drunk driver who drove down Fairview Avenue into my driveway, crushed my vehicle, pushed it 30 feet across my yard into a tree, because the traffic is a nightmare. So I hope they plan on doing a traffic study, because I am out of car now because people like to speed around that corner. So it's the snow removal, and it's a hazard for them to be plowing that snow out into the street, because when they miss, they end up in my yard or my house. My house has been struck twice. I'm concerned.
Mr. Cronin, would you like to answer that?
We'll have snow designation storage areas on site, not off site. And there's plenty of room given the open space and the drainage areas that are needed.
Okay, I just really hope they would clean it up, because it's very trashy over there. I mean, there's trash blowing everywhere, and I want to know is somebody gonna come and monitor my yard for the water table, or are they just gonna say you know, like, oh, it doesn't change here, so it's not gonna change down here. I'm downhill from them. I'm gonna get everything. And my house is gonna collapse with the water flowing under it. I'm concerned.
Certainly. And the standard is at the property boundary that the DM require. We're not allowed to use your property for any storage.
And I just, I mean, what, and the taxes too, like the taxes are gonna go down now, right? The tax revenue you taking in from this property will go down because you're reducing the number of units. So every child that moves in will be on the hook for the difference of educating that child, right?
As the town would be anyways, but there'd be less chance of having school-aged children.
All right, but if they're bringing in 42,000, is that what it's still gonna be bringing in revenue? And then we're gonna pay out, if 2 kids move in there, 54,000?
It's 2 less units, so that would mean 2 less kids, correct, Mr. Durham?
But it's 27,000 per child, he said last month.
I don't think there's a direct correlation between the number of units and the number of school children. There was evidence presented by Mr. Lombardo that 2-bedroom units had lower levels of family inhabitants and as a result, school-aged children, which is why the town encourages the rental properties to be 2 units as opposed to 3 units. And that is why we've gone to the 2-unit townhouse model here. So that we have less units, there'll be less people, there'll be a few less bedrooms. So yes, that's the.
And they will take care of that snow issue and keep their snow on their own property, because that's very hazardous, because I'm the one who pays for it. They come around the corner, they lose control, I pay the price.
So Mr. Duhamel had indicated that he'll designate snow storage areas on the preliminary plan.
Okay, because, I just want to, when my yard starts to flood, I want it on record that I complain that my yard's going to be underwater and it's going to be unusable, and I'm going to make them buy it from me. You know what I mean? Because it's going to be unusable if I get flooded out.
So
I just want it on record that I'm,
So Mary, I hate to be so informal, but I did not catch your last name when you introduced yourself.
Oh, sorry, it's Perry. I'm a little stressed out because, they plow out in the street, my car gets totaled. I mean, you don't know how many people I've had to pick up off the street. People trying to turn off Black Rock onto Fairview. I hear the crash, I come running out. I mean, it's a nightmare over there. So I would hope that they would do a traffic study and people would just, keep their snow on their own property, so that way I don't have to keep losing vehicles and houses. I've already been driven through 2 times, like I said, and it's horrifying. So I hope they're gonna do a traffic study and take it seriously and not allow parking over there, because I'm gonna be, and I'm the one who's gonna be flooded when they decide that the water table is gonna shift and move the water flow under my house or into my yard, and I'm upset. You know what I mean? I just wish they would work on that. That's all. And I think that we're gonna be in the hole if more than 2 kids move in, and that's more taxes out of my money that, that's why. That's my concern. More than 2 children move in, Coventry's running a deficit. So that's all.
Thank you, Mrs. Perry, for your questions.
Thank you for listening.
Okay, Mr. Crossman, anybody else?
Yes, I have another one. I just have numbers. Okay, let me see. I only can bring them in. 740906.
Seven 40906.
Hi, this is Rebecca Nito at 32 Black Rock Road.
Could you just pronounce your name one more time, please?
Rebecca Nito, N-E-T-O.
Thank you.
So I don't know if you could bring up the proposed plan. I'm at 32 Black Rock. So my property abuts the drainage off Black Rock and the Westerly building.
Mr. Chair, do you want me to bring it up?
Absolutely, please.
Thank you.
Is that it?
Thank you.
Yep,
Can you
that's
see
it.
that?
So what exactly is the distance between that westerly property and the wetlands that they are proposing with the revised plans?
I apologize, Ms. Nito. I'm not sure what area you're referring to as the westerly property.
They were just circling on it. The proposed building for
Okay.
dwelling, that one,
Okay, the distance from there to where?
to those wetlands right over there. Because that is the difference between, that's the buffer between my property and the proposed building.
Right. So, Mr. Duhamel, do you know can you calculate the distance between the proposed building and Ms. Nito's property line?
Yeah, quickly, it's 10 feet to the wetlands and to the property, it's, oh boy. About 70 feet.
What do you mean by the property? 70 feet to my property line?
Yes.
Yeah, 72 feet. There's an isolated wetland that's shown on this property. It's in dark and there's triangle flags.
It's not that isolated right now in the winter when everything comes flying through. I mean, like I said in the past meeting, there are children that go and play in there from the apartment buildings. My other concern is, are they going to have to build up that land to build that property? And then now you're going to cause more overflow into that drainage area. My shed is right there. The underground spring's right there. What is that going to do?
Yeah, I don't have this shed on this plan. Let's see if it's on the survey plan. You know, all we can do is be within our property. We cannot alter your property at all. And-
Right, but if what you do to your property alters my property, then that's an issue.
That's right. So we can't provide flooding to any abutting properties. We have to maintain the amount of stormwater that's generated from our site. And then the increase in stormwater that be generated from the increase in parking and the increase in roof surfaces, that has to be captured.
That's my shed.
Okay.
Mr. Duhamel, can you see that? Thank you, Mr. Crossman, for that topography.
Yeah,
Yep,
so
thank you.
that's showing the shed off the property, which is consistent with our class 1 survey. We don't show any encroachment. So your shed is clearly on your property and we can't move it or touch it. And the wetland falls short of your shed area and your property.
Well, it does now.
Yeah.
That's my point.
The verified wetland falls short of that, and we're not allowed to alter the verified wetland one bit. So the drainage system would capture the increase in stormwater runoff in volume and hold it on site and infiltrate or dissipate it off site to that receiving wetland at the same rate that it is today. So there wouldn't be any increase in flooding to off-site properties. That's a requirement of the Department of Environmental Management, the town of Coventry. It's very strictly adhered to. The Public Works Department will be watching over what design that we have and how it is maintained.
And if I may ask, when does the DEM become involved? Because I believe at the last meeting, it was said that, they really hadn't been involved up until that point, excuse me.
They've been involved with the verification of the limit of wetlands on site. We have a verified wetland edge. That's the first step. The next step is the design of any site improvements in the stormwater management system. And that is where they would get most involved. And they're also involved in the construction and construction oversight in compliance with the approved design plan. So they're very much involved, as is the town of Coventry.
So you had mentioned that it was only 10 feet between the building and the wetlands. What is the normal requirement for that?
That is what the minimum would be for the ice wetland. That's how it is designed.
So I just want to point out, like, even though you've reduced the building sizes, you're still going after the absolute maximum encroachment. I mean, you can understand how that makes us homeowners feel.
I don't have that characterization. You'd have to explain more for me.
What I mean is, so you've taken one unit out of each building, but it was supposed to be 40 feet between the property line and then 50 feet between a parallel building, but you're still reducing it to 20, I believe. Maybe 40 on the parallel. But my point is that you're just pushing everything to the extreme to put these buildings on this property. That's my point. And then who's to say down the road, if you let this happen, you're not going to let it happen somewhere else. So I'm going from a single family, basically a single family residential neighborhood. Now I've got an apartment complex, essentially, abutting my property. Who's to say if I don't have another apartment complex around the corner? I mean, you can understand why we're getting heated.
Yeah, your separation from the apartment building to your property is 70 feet, so it's well in excess.
It's 70 feet from my property line, but
Yes.
still we have that buffer line with, you know, the kids are going in there and playing. So essentially they're right on top of my shed and my dog house. And, you know, I have a dog, he's outside. Who's to say a kid doesn't wander in and, you know, try to pet my dog? My dog is friendly, but
The property will be fenced in, ma'am.
even on my side, I thought that was just
Around the perimeter, I believe, of the project.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. Around the entire perimeter, a 6-foot solid privacy fence.
by solid, you mean like a wooden fence, not a chain link fence?
That is what I mean.
Mr. Chairman, can I say something?
Absolutely, Mr. Reyes.
Mr. Duham, are you still putting slabs?
That's the design at this point, yes.
Well, if you put in slabs, that means less water will be moved around. So it's not going to disturb that much if he puts in slabs, ma'am.
Okay, I mean, that's a little bit better, but still, I mean, I just hope that the town understands my concerns. And also, you know, I think I can speak for Andrea, who was right there, and I know you kind of backed off on how you were abutting her. But still, I mean, you know, we're used to privacy back here. I bought my house in 1998. I moved in 96. It was completely private. And now I've got these people encroaching on me. It sets you off.
That's understandable, Mrs. Perry. Any other questions?
No, I'm done.
Thank you for your.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for your questions. Mr. Crossman, anybody else?
Yes, give me 1 second, please.
No problem. Take two.
Okay, next I have a Jay LeBlanc.
Good evening, James LeBlanc, 43 Hazard Street, Coventry, Rhode Island. First, I just want to say thank you to Chairman Flynn and the board and Mr. Crossman for recommending public comment be reopened tonight. I know you didn't have to, so just wanted to say thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And as a council member, I believe it's important to voice the concerns of my constituents when they reach out to me on a specific issue. And many have called and emailed me about this project in particular. Neighbors are just concerned about noise pollution, the traffic at all hours of the night, trespassing by neighbors, and on-street parking on Fairview Ave. And where this project is located, it's close to a curve. I do know that there was mention of a traffic study. Do we know when that traffic study is actually going to be provided to the town?
Yes.
When is that?
It would be at the next stage, the preliminary plan stage, where it's typically been required under environmental review, ERT review, technical review of the planning commission. And you might not consider it for the amount of use that we're proposing, given a maximum of 5 cars during a peak hour would utilize going in and out of the development, but we're proposing to do that for the DOT and for the town of Coventry.
Okay, I appreciate the insight there. Thank you for the answer. My only other comment is, I know we're talking about a privacy fence that's only 6 feet high. I just didn't know if it would be possible to recommend a 7-foot or an 8-foot fence around the property. Just because neighbors have indicated that there has been trespassing problems in the past, and I just thought maybe a higher fence might maybe help that issue. So, but just wanted to make the comment.
I believe 6 foot are the maximum allowed if you have to go for a variance, I believe. Can staff jump in
Mr.
on
Flynn, if
that?
I may,
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Crossman.
because this is a comprehensive permit application, you have the authority to grant that variance. You can grant them the 2-foot waiver to put up an 8-foot fence if you so choose.
Okay, thank you.
It would not have to go before zoning. You're welcome.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman
Thank
Flynn, can I ask a question?
Go ahead, Mr. Kenny.
Mr. Duham, is there currently a fence around the property?
There is a stone wall that demarks the property. There's a vinyl fence at the beginning north property line near Black Rock Road that goes in for the first lot, 150 feet or so, and then a stone wall. You know, I'm told that there's no school children on this that are currently renting here, so I'm wondering if the concerns raised are from the neighborhood children.
Well, what my point was, the reason I asked that question is because I know Mr. LeBlanc was talking about people trespassing and whatnot. Right now, there are stone walls and minimal fencing.
Yes,
That's correct. The client is proposing putting a 6-foot fence around the entire area. So the entire property, therefore, any trespassing off the property or onto the property should be limited, if not dissuaded completely.
And there's a privacy, a landscape buffer as well, which will probably exceed the height of the fence.
I appreciate the discussion. I just wanted to throw a suggestion.
I
But
appreciate the
thank you for
suggestion.
listening.
Thank you. Is that all you have, Mr. LeBlanc?
Yes, it is. I hope you all have a good night.
Thank you for your comments. You also.
I have one more, Mr. Flynn.
Go ahead, Mr. Crossman.
Hello, Mr. Flynn.
Yes.
This is Ben Pera, 7 Walnut Hill Road, Coventry.
Hi, Mr. Pera.
How are you?
Very good.
Just calling, I don't abut the property, but I have some concern about the fire department. I'm retired from there. I'm no longer on there, but has anybody been down to speak to the fire department on that? That property already was a limited access for fire trucks. It was like you drive in and you have to back out. From the plans I'm seeing, I don't see a place that you can turn a 70 or 80-foot fire truck around down in there. And you're going to add 2 more buildings. That's going to require a ladder truck to get in there along with an engine. So there's going to need to be some address to that. And it's typical that when you have an incident at an apartment building like that, it's always at 2 o'clock in the morning when every resident is there and the cars are parked.
Mr. Duhamel,
Yeah, if I
you-
could,
you are-
we,
yeah,
this was an issue that came up on the initial site walk with the planning commission, and the planning commission saw that immediately, and from that concern, we went to the fire marshal and we asked for their approval, and what we provided was a T intersection at the end of the driveway. There currently is no T intersection. All parking is striped on either side of it. But we're providing a 25-foot pervious courtyard, if you will, that would provide for a fire truck with H20 wheel loads to make a 3-point turn. The striping, the parking striping is such that it will allow for the wheels to turn in and out and not to impede on any parked cars. So this new plan, if you see, there's a striped 9 by 18-foot stall on either side of the aisleway. That could have been parking areas, but because of the turning movements of the fire truck, we had to block those off as dedicated fire lane openings. So yes, we're very much in contact with the fire department. We're for their approval of the fire hydrants in the area. We already have their approval for the access. That'll be upgraded for preliminary plan as well. But this is designed to essentially
And
to improve.
there's enough space for, say, one truck to go down and turn around and come back and pass another truck that's going in the opposite direction?
Yeah, I guess you could say that. It's a 24-foot aisle. Once the truck wheels are parallel and moving, the two trucks can pass one past the other, but I don't know that that's the standard of the fire marshal. It wasn't.
Well, it is for the fire. I was fire marshal there for 9 years.
In there, you had two trucks that came in?
Well, in the initial plan, what is sitting there right now, we could not pull in there with a truck and turn around and come out. You have
I
to.
agree. I agree.
And then you put cars up.
We're improving that plan.
Tighter. But that was my initial concern with it. As I said, I'm no longer on the fire department. I don't really have a concern with it, but we had a development on Benoit Street that got past this stage, and when they came to us at the fire department, it went away because we couldn't turn around. It was a dead ended, and it was like 300 feet up, so we could potentially get 3 trucks stuck in there and couldn't get out. And that's potentially what could happen here, but I don't know the full extent of the site plan. I'm just looking at the plans, and to me, as a fire marshal, looking at this would say, this is an issue for me. If you've been to the fire department and talked to them, I know the 2 fire marshals there. One of them I talked to the other day. He said he hasn't heard anything about it, so.
No, that's not true. I'm trying to text my son, who's in contact with him several times.
But that's all I was concerned about. Like I said, I am not an official there anymore. I have nothing. I'm just trying to solve a problem before it starts.
No, I appreciate your comments and your service, of course, and like I said, the planning commission had identified that problem from the get-go.
All right. I know.
Thank you, Mr. Para. Yes, we addressed that last month, and we always bring all projects in front of the fire department.
I know that when I was the fire marshal, we had planning meetings at the town hall and we discussed this before it even got to this stage. So that might still be going on. I'm not sure.
It definitely is, Mr. Para.
All right.
Thank you for your input. I appreciate it.
All right.
Mr. Crossman, is there anybody else?
Yes, I have one more, Mr. Flynn.
Okay.
Looks like it's a done deal anyway.
Mr. Perry, you may want to put yourself on mute.
I just had him, I just removed him. Andrea, I just brought you in. Can you unmute, please?
Can you hear me now? Hello, can you hear
Yes,
me?
go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Name and address, please, for the record.
Yes, Andrea Pinato, 38 Black Rock Road.
Thank you.
I want to thank Mr. Ben Perry for mentioning that about the fire department. My late father, as you know, Mr. Flynn, was the fire chief at the Anthony Fire Department for almost 60 years. He had a lot of firefighting knowledge and expertise under his belt. A neighbor who inquired was told by the local fire department that these plans could be approved if a fire truck can pull in. The truck does not need to turn around. These are two-story townhouse style apartments. I would hope that a ladder truck would be able to get to windows on the back side of the building. Or what if a pumper truck was needed because of low pressure? And where do you park the rescue vehicles that always accompany fire apparatus? As Mr. Perez said, these things usually happen at night when the lot is full. It really doesn't matter how close a building is to a fire department. Most of you are familiar with the Coventry Court apartments off Boston Street, the 72-unit townhomes there that the locals refer to as the chicken coops. A dreadful planning board decision from another time. Well, Boston Street is right up the road from the fire department. Yet back in December of 2000, when my dad was the fire chief, 3 young children under the age of 6 years perished in an apartment fire. Those children's faces haunted my father for the rest of his life. I hope for the sake of future families renting apartments in Coventry that the planning board demands new proposals are strictly adhered to as far as fire safety regulations, that fire officials make no exceptions in reviewing these plans so that all of you can sleep at night. Thank you.
Thank you. We take that very seriously and remember your dad well, and I know he pulled some people out of that fire.
Yes,
But thank you for your comments. Appreciate it.
thank you.
Mr. Crossman, anybody else?
Oh, wait a minute, I do have one. Hold on a minute.
Okay.
I believe he is the owner of the property. Give me a second.
Mr. Pazuko?
Yes. Mr. Bazzuco, could you please unmute and state your name
Yes,
and
sir.
address for the record, please?
Yes, sir. Can you all hear me?
Yep, name and address for the record.
Ronald Pizzuco, 16 Surrey Drive, Johnston, Rhode Island. I am one of the owners of the 445 Fairview Avenue apartment complex. And I wasn't going to speak, but I just want to chime in and let you folks all know, and even the neighbors, that my brother and I feel like we are neighbors to those folks that own property there. And I appreciate the planning board's input. I appreciate Mr. Duhamel and Mr. Cronin's work on this. And we have been working diligently and very hard to make sure that we can try at our very least make everyone happy with this project. And I understand when something's being built and you around your property, you feel like you're being encroached on, or you feel like you're losing the grip on maybe your privacy. But one thing about my brother Richard Pizzuco and I is that we take a lot of pride in our property and the things that we do. We've been developing and doing construction projects for our entire life. I'm in my mid-50s. My dad started us when we were teenagers. And I do take exception to some of the things about the trash blowing around and the property not looking good and it kind of being a dump and the people are not that nice that live there. And all of those things are not true. So I would love to take you folks for a tour if you would like of some of our units. my brother and I go through great lengths to give folks that don't own a home and that need to rent a place that they can be comfortable in. They have beautiful kitchens, they have granite countertops, they have wood floors. The places are very clean. We try to keep the outside. You know, and unfortunately, I was there over the last weekend. I wanted to take a picture out of the back window of, we're actually doing unit 4 over right now of the surrounding yards. And I don't want to be talking on anybody else, but their property is not looking really good. Okay, we have stone walls, we have fences. The neighbors have taken the stone walls down. The neighbors have encroached their fences on our property. We don't go, we don't fight, we don't approach anyone, we don't do anything like that. We have a landscaper, we cut the grass, we do plow the snow. Okay, we do not plow the snow onto Fairview Avenue. There may be a piece that goes out to Fairview Avenue and goes up against the curb, but we're very, very conscientious about where we put the snow. We're very conscientious on how our tenants are treated. We're very conscientious of their safety. We're very conscientious of the fire safety code and the life safety code. We have fire alarms in the building. We do whatever we can to make the place safe. My brother and I are human beings. We're parents. We have families. We respect the people that are in our apartments, just like they are our relatives. So with that being said, I hope that this project goes forward. I think that, and I know that when we build it, everybody in that neighborhood will be happy at the way it looks. My brother and I also have a plan, which is going to be starting in the spring, to redo the facade on the existing building. Because in our opinion, we do not really care for the way that it looks. We're particular in the way that our property looks. And again, I would be happy to take you folks for a tour. So with that being said, I think that when we get done, a lot of the things that these folks are looking at and that they see now, the building is old. I think they were built in the 60s. And it could use some sprucing up. Landscaping, bushes pulled, a new parking lot, things like that. And those are the things that we're going to do. We're going to invest a lot of money in the property. We're not going to cheap it. So with that being said, I hope that you guys have see us through to the next meeting. And we're happy to work in Coventry. And we're always a team player, and we'll do whatever we need to do to make everyone around us happy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that statement. And I did hear that you were actually improving the inside of the building, but it's nice to hear you also going to improve the existing building's exterior.
Yeah, I don't think we can have one without the other, Chairman.
Thank you for your comments.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Crossman, anybody else?
I have 2 more. It looks like Mary wants to talk again, but I have someone new, so I'm going to bring them in first.
Okay.
Let's see. Richard, could you please unmute, please? I just brought someone named Richard in. Richard, could you please unmute?
There he is. He's still
No,
muted.
yes, no, he's still muted.
He's still muted. Richard, could you unmute, please?
Richard, we can't hear
Yes,
you.
I'm here. Hi. I just,
Hi.
the new computer, so sorry.
No problem. Name and address for the record, please.
Richard Pizzuko, 14 Surrey Drive, Johnston, Rhode Island.
Go ahead, Mr. Pizzuko. I'm assuming you're the other owner.
I'm the brother. My brother Ronnie and I own the property. So I just want to add a couple of things. I appreciate the fireman who spoke, his service. I served in the United States Marine Corps. So, and And so as my brother said, we take a lot of pride in what we do and integrity. I just want to add that we bought the property about 5 years ago. And, it takes a lot to spruce up a piece of property like that. And we have been doing it. And as tenants move out, we go in there and redo the apartments. And so I know the neighbors, I get it too, that get a building going, you think your lot's gonna get flooded. My brother and I, as you heard, his address is 16, mine's 14. And we own a construction company. We don't do a lot of developing, but when we do it like for passion. We have a lot of passion. And we actually live in our development. So, and that says a lot. There's 30 houses here, 30 neighbors. Not many developers live in their neighborhood. So I just want to let the neighbors that surround, the area in Fairview, 445 Fairview, that we do care a lot. And we're doing our best. It takes a while. And so that's all I wanted to say. So I want to let them also, try to reassure them and make them, feel a little more comfortable. If they want to meet us, we're glad to meet them and show them an apartment. And so that's about it. So I'd like to see the project go through, and we're going to make the place a better place. And so that's about it.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Pizzuko.
Thank you. Have a good night. Appreciate it.
You too. Thank you. Mr. Crossman, we have someone else, you said?
I have one more. It looks like Mary wants to speak again.
Okay.
Mary, are you there? No, it says Brad. Okay, but that's Mary. Mary, we can't hear you. We can see you, we just can't hear you.
Hello?
There you go.
Okay, hi.
Hi, Mary, can you say your name and address again, please?
Okay, it's Mary Perry, 473 Fairview Avenue, and my husband Steve is also here. And I actually took photos of the snow that they plowed into the street. So they can't say that they don't do it, because I have photos of them doing it, and I have the video and the photos. So don't say that I have the pictures, because this is how my property gets damaged. So I'm just saying, if they're gonna work on the snow, please work on it, because don't say you don't do it when I have video. He's not here. He's from Johnston. He doesn't see what's happening here. So that's all I wanted to say. You have the photos in my phone along with my crashed car. So if he wants to come here and talk to me about it, that's great. I'm here.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Go ahead, Mr. Wazika.
Mary, if
yeah,
during the next snowstorm, if they are out there plowing and they plow it into the road, please call the PD, let them know what they're doing, and they will come down and they will take care of the situation. So if they are doing it again, please do it that way.
Okay, I don't know what the police can do. That's why I didn't call. I don't know whose jurisdiction is what.
It is a town ordinance and they can be cited, so you can.
Right, because
give
I
them a
have,
call.
because it's, I looked it up because my neighbor was plowing into my driveway. And it's, section S2097, A, B, C, and D, and they violated every single one of them. So I'm just saying, don't say he's not doing it when he's doing it. I even drove by to took the photos because it's aggravating.
Well, like I said, when he is doing it, call
That's
the
all.
PD and let them know.
Okay, I will. Thank you for letting me know I could do that. And will the PD respond?
Yes, they will. If they don't.
Oh, okay, I didn't.
Yeah, if they don't, please call me the next morning.
Okay, because I'm not sure who took care of that. That's why. But I do have video of it piled high up onto the thing. And that's a bus stop, by the way. There's kids that's supposed to be standing there, but obviously they can't because school is, I don't know if school's in or out. I don't have school-age children anymore, but that's when my daughter used to get picked up for the bus. So it's kind of dangerous. Because the kids will have to stand in the street, you know, when school does resume. That's just my point. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary. Mr. Crossman, do you have anybody else?
I have nobody else. If you'd like to just make an announcement and then if you want to close the public hearing?
Okay, before I close public hearing, would there anybody else from the public want to speak on this project? Do you see anybody else, Mr. Crossman?
I have no hands raised, Mr. Flynn.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to close public hearing.
I'll motion to close it.
Mr. Reyes makes a motion to close. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Ozakowski. Any discussion before I close? Okay, Mr. Reyes,
Aye.
Mr. Kenny,
Aye.
Mr. Poselli,
Aye.
Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Mr. Mattson,
Aye.
Mr. Ozakowski,
Aye.
Ms. Lukowitz,
Aye.
Mr. Clunin,
Aye.
Chairman Flynn also says aye. Okay, public hearing is closed. Is there anybody on the board have any questions for Mr. Cronin?
I just want to get one point clarified, and I know, because I was the one that was at the initial site walk and raised the issue of fire apparatus. But there has been, and there will continue to be, approvals needed from the Coventry Fire District with regards to the design and the water flow and smoke detectors and fire alarms and all of that. And they will be inspecting that, including reviewing the plans as this process moves forward. I know tonight is not the final approval or the preliminary plan approval, but just master approval. So you still got a few more steps to go, but they will still be involved. Is that correct?
That is
Yes, very
correct,
much
Mr.
so.
Clunian. Yes.
Is that it, Rick?
Yeah, that's it.
Anybody else on the board have any questions?
Mr. Chair, Glenn Anderson,
Go ahead, Glenn.
just reviewing the original zoning ordinances that they wanted waived. There was 5 of them on the old planning director's report. And how many did we actually, and I'm sorry if I missed it, but how many did we eliminate? If anyone has that in front of them. And I can go right to number 3. We know that they're not asking for a waiver now with the standards for the multifamily buildings distance between family buildings. Is that correct?
There still is one area where we need that waiver, Mr. Anderson, and that's between the existing 9-unit apartment building and the edge of the northern 4-unit building, where the zoning ordinance asks for 40 feet. We have 25 and a decimal there. So all the other ones have been eliminated, but that one does remain.
Okay, and then I think it was number 4, the 40 feet to the property line. You were asking for 24, but you've met that standard now?
No, we have increased the distance between the property line and the buildings along the western edge of the property, but they do not meet the 40-foot. They're 32 to the closest edge of the southwestern building, and then about 25 and change to the closest corner of the northernmost building. So although we have improved those distances, we still need a waiver in that area.
And then the last one,
It's 29, Tom.
29, I apologize.
It's 20 at the Smith property where we have approval.
We have his agreement, right? Yeah.
and then number 5 was the lot coverage. You were asking for 47%. Did that shrink?
That did as well, Mr. Anderson, yes. It has shrunk. I believe that the lot coverage, and Mr. Duhamel, of course, will have more accurate figures, but I believe it's been improved by approximately 5%. So although we still need the waiver, as you point out, the request is smaller than it had been.
Okay, so even with the modifications, and thank you so much for meeting those things, you definitely listened to a lot of our requests. We're still looking for the 5 different zoning ordinances waivers. They're just less.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Could I just get a follow-up to that? Because I want to make sure we have the correct distances. With regards to zoning, number 3, it's still 20 feet from the property line.
The closest building is still 20 feet from Mr., I believe it's Grantham, his property.
So the waiver there stays the same.
That's right.
20 feet to the property lines required, it's going to 20. The next one, the distance between, that's going from 24.7 to 29 feet, Chris?
Between the existing building and the proposed building, the two ends is 30 feet. It was 24.7.
Right. So that's the waiver then. It's no longer 24.7. You're looking for a minimum of 30.
Your 30 would be,
Between the multifamily buildings.
yes.
Okay. And it's 44% lot coverage based on the plan I got today. Is that correct? A 3% reduction?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anybody else on the board? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, before, I'm prepared to make a motion, but I would just like to maybe preface that after last month's meeting, and I appreciate the changes to the plans. I know there was an attempt, and I appreciate Mr. Ray's making the motion to move it forward. And regardless of how I feel, whether I'm going to vote for this or against it, I think the outcome really was that we have to give the applicant a motion one way or the other. And a motion, no motion actually does not give him an approval or a denial. And a motion to deny, even if it passes, or if it doesn't pass, doesn't necessarily give him an approval. And we also have a time constraint here where if we don't act within a specified period of time from the date the application was filed, they're granted approval by default. So that being said, to bring this to a vote, we have 9 members here and we require 5 in the affirmative for it to pass. I would like to make a motion to approve the master plan for the comprehensive permit application for property located at 445 Fairview Avenue, Assessors Plat 63, Lot 154 in the R20 zone. The lot size is approximately 1.5 acres, and the applicant is proposing to construct 2 residential apartment buildings with 4 units per building. This project is a comprehensive permit application in which slightly over 25% of the proposed units will provide low to moderate income housing. The proposed development is consistent with the local needs as identified in the local comprehensive community plan, with particular emphasis on the community's affordable housing plan, and/or has satisfactorily addressed the issues where there may be inconsistencies. Coventry's affordable housing rate, according to the state's definition, is approximately 5.35% compared with the 8.3% in Rhode Island overall. The town of Coventry and the Coventry Housing Authority should continue to secure all available resources to provide housing for low and moderate income groups. This project provides for an additional 3 apartments for low to moderate income groups. The proposed development is in compliance with the standards and provisions of the municipal zoning ordinance and subdivisions, except where relief is granted by waivers. The waivers and or relief granted does not appear to outweigh the state and local need for low and moderate income housing. The project is located within an existing apartment complexes and compliant with the requirements of the zoning district pending the issuance of the special use permit and the dimensional waivers that are part of this motion to approve. All low and moderate income housing units proposed are integrated throughout the development, are compatible in scale and architectural style to the market rate units within the project, and will be built and occupied prior to or simultaneous with the construction and occupancy of any market rate units. And the proposed project is providing the town of Coventry with 3 low to moderate income units, which is in excess of the 25% project total. It does not appear that there will be any significant negative environmental impacts from the proposed development as shown on the final plan with all required conditions for approval. There does not appear to be any significant negative impacts on the health and safety or current or future residents of the community in areas including but not limited to pedestrian safety and vehicular traffic flow, provisions for emergency services, sewage disposal, available of potable water, adequate surface runoff, and the preservation of natural, historical, cultural features that contribute to the attractiveness of the community. The proposed development will have adequate and permanent physical access to a public street in accordance with the requirements of Rhode Island General Law 45-23-60, paragraph 5. The proposed development will not result in the creation of any individual lots. This motion, bear with me, I jotted some notes down. This motion is subject to the applicant providing information or documents specified in the checklist as items required for master plan approval will be deferred to preliminary plan approval. And those will be numbers 48, 49, 50, 51, 66, 74, 76, 77, 106, and 107, which primarily relate to catch basins, water pipes, drain pipes, species of trees, approvals from the Department of Environmental Management for freshwater wetlands, Kent County water approvals, submitting a landscape plan and a soil erosion and sediment control plan. Additionally, the following checklist items required for the comprehensive permit will be deferred to preliminary plan stage, such as DEM permits, sediment and erosion control plan, and quantities. These waivers are identified as D, K, N, P, Q, S, and T, and relate to deed restrictions, evidence of the nonprofit status, the erosion and sediment control plan, the local fire district's written assessment of water flow requirements, the condominium association bylaws, if applicable, approvals from the Rhode Island Historical Preservation and Heritage Commission, including any archaeological investigations, and any phase 1 or phase 2 surveys, if applicable. Additionally, inclusive of this motion for approval are the following zoning ordinance waivers. Zoning section 255-1440A, paragraph 1, paragraph 2, intensity regulations. The Planning Commission approves the proposed density of 17 units. Zoning section 255, table 6-1, schedule of district use regulations, multifamily dwelling project. The proposed project shall be granted a special use permit for residential multifamily apartment buildings within the R20 zone district as part of this comprehensive permit application. Zoning section 255-1460, paragraph C, standards for multifamily dwellings. The distance between multifamily dwellings is required to be 40 feet. The proposed project shall be granted relief that allows for the distance between the multifamily building and the nearest property line to 20 feet. Zoning section 255-1460, paragraph B, standards for multifamily dwellings, distance between multifamily buildings, the 2 abutting ends, where 40 feet is required. The proposed project shall be provided relief to allow a minimum distance between multifamily dwellings at 30 feet. the applicant shall be granted relief from the required dimensional regulations with a maximum lot coverage of 20%. That will be relief granted to a maximum lot coverage of 44, not to exceed 44%. Additionally, I have 3 stipulations. The applicant shall erect a stop sign at the exit to Fairview Avenue as suggested by DPW. Any pavers or other impervious surfaces being constructed shall be crowned or pitched such that stormwater runoff is managed on site and does not sheet flow onto abutting roadways or abutting properties. And I would like to incorporate the planning director's report into my motion.
Thank you, Mr. Colonian, for that motion. Do I hear a second?
Second by Mr. Kenny.
Second by Mr. Kenny. Any discussion? Okay, I'll take a poll.
Ron, this is Jay.
Go ahead,
Just
Mr.
here,
Zakat.
sorry. Mr. Colunian, great job on the motion, as usual. I had a question for you. I'm not advocating, but I didn't hear the fencing size height addressed. Did you want to address that or not? It had a 6 foot. There was discussion during the public hearing about an 8 foot.
Myself, I'm comfortable with the 6 foot. I think the 8 foot is going to take away from the look of the building, but I mean, I'm open to the comments from the board.
I will tell you, I did not say that. I didn't include the 8 feet only because normally in the R20 zone, it's not allowed. And again, we have some abutting property owners. Maybe some would want it, some would not. The other issue is the fence there. At least what I saw on the plan, and I could ask either Chris or Mr. Cronin to answer this, is in addition to the fencing, we have landscape buffer, at least on one side, and then the rear of the property, we still have approximately 50 feet of wooded area, which comprises the existing wetlands. So to put up an 8 foot fence versus a 6 foot fence, if the goal is to keep intruders from trespassing on abutting properties, I think it serves fine, and I think there'd be adequate privacy. That's why I didn't go to the 8 foot fence.
I was just looking at the aesthetic value. I think an 8 foot fence would take away from the aesthetics of the property, but that's certainly my opinion and my opinion only.
Well,
that was my opinion too. I just didn't want it to not get any attention after it came out of the public hearing. So
could I just get confirmation then? I mean, as long as we're in discussion, there is going to be a landscape buffer along, I guess it's the southerly property line in addition to the fence?
Yes.
And we still will have, at least as the rear of this property, that's the piece that I guess that would be the westerly area. If we're going to fence the perimeter, and again, I don't know if you can actually put a fence on the perimeter without disturbing the wetlands, but wherever the fence is, regardless of that, there still will be approximately 50 to 60 feet of wooded wetland area to the rear of the property, acting as an additional buffer to the fence for visual.
Yes, and the commission will have time during preliminary to scrutinize that plan. The landscape.
yeah, I mean, based on the verification, they have not much room, but they have room for the fence without encroaching on the wetland.
Yeah, Jay, I was gonna say the same thing. Looking at the plans, they do have room between the wetlands and the woman's property line in the back there to actually establish a fence.
Thank you. Any other discussion from the board? I have a motion and I have a second. Favorable for the, so I will go with the roll call. Mr. Reyes?
Aye.
Mr. Reyes is an aye. Mr. Kenny?
Aye.
Mr. Poselli?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Mattson?
Aye.
Mr. Ozenkowski?
Aye.
Ms. Lukowitz?
Nay.
That's a no. Mr. Clunian?
Aye.
And Chairman Flynn also says yes, or aye. So The motion passes 8-1.
I thank the board. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank you
listening
very
to us,
much.
Mr. Cronin.
Mr. Flynn, just again, for the benefit of those abutters and folks that spoke tonight, this does not give them approval to go out and get a building permit tomorrow. They still have many hurdles to go, and they will be back before us for a preliminary plan approval, and there will be another public hearing.
Yeah, well stated, Mr. Colonian.
Thank
They
you.
have a lot of things
Understood.
to do yet.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, before I go to the next, does anybody need a 5-minute break? Or do you want me to
Yes.
continue?
Please.
I heard a yes. So we're gonna take a
Yes.
5-minute recess before we continue. Thank you. How you making out, Sandy?
I'm doing
Okay,
a little painful.
yeah, you look like you're in a little bit of pain,
Yeah, I am.
but thanks for participating tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Ron, it looks like you got all your members back.
Okay. Everybody all set to continue? Okay, next on the agenda is 8.4 preliminary application for Fairview Avenue subdivision. Owners Joseph LaCroix, 61 Wood Cove Drive, Coventry, Rhode Island. Applicant same as above, proposed 2-lot minor subdivision, a vacant lot, AP 80 lot 15, zone R20, and that's on Fairview Avenue. Anybody here representing the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, Thomas Cronin,
I'm Mr. Cronin.
1070 Main Street, Coventry, Rhode Island. Mr. LaCroix joins me. He's in the grid here. This is a 2-lot minor subdivision with no street creation. The current lot on Fairview Avenue is 1.23 acres. It's vacant land. The most interesting attribute of the land is a 100-foot wide Narragansett Electric easement along the southern border of the property. These are large utility structures. The area is cleared. They're visible from Fairview Avenue. In addition to the frontage on Fairview Avenue, the property also has 50 feet of frontage on Ray Street. It's not on the corner of Fairview and Ray. There's another house on the corner, kind of goes around that house. The proposal is to take the 1.23 acres, subdivide it into 2 lots. These lots will be conforming lots in the R20 zone. Lot 1 will have 31,554 square feet and 206 feet of frontage on Fairview Avenue. And Lot 2 will have 22,222, say that 5 times fast, square feet and 128 feet of frontage on Fairview Avenue. Both the utilities and the access will be from Fairview Avenue. There will not be access or utilities from Ray Street and that 50 feet. The easement I mentioned will be on Lot 1. It'll be a portion of Lot 1. And the 50 feet on Ray Street will be on Lot 2. So 2 single-family houses are proposed. Single-family houses are the predominant use in the surrounding neighborhood. Each of those houses will have driveways that enter onto Fairview Avenue. We have submitted physical alteration permit documentation from the DOT in that regard. As I mentioned, otherwise the setbacks and area requirements of the R20 zone are met. The Kent County Water Authority will provide water. The initial report came back a little on the low side. We're doing some further investigation on that, whether some residential booster might be required for the individual homes, or if there's some other solution that Kent County Water can identify. They'll have OWTS on site, 1 for each home, not a shared situation. So this is a subdivision that fits the neighborhood, fits the zoning requirements, and is not requesting any relief from the zoning ordinance at this time. I don't wish to belabor the point on this long evening for the planning board. So if there are any questions, I'll address them, but those are the basics of the plan.
Anybody on the board have any questions for the applicant?
I do. I wanted to see if anyone else did first. Mr. Either Mr. Cronin or the applicant, has any thought been given to some sort of hammerhead so that the cars aren't backing onto Fairview Avenue?
So, Mr. LaCroix, you care to address that?
Sure. Ocean State Planners did all of the plans for me. They, as of right now, they have not provided any kind of hammerhead for a turnaround. Though I think it could be easily accommodated.
It does seem like there'd be plenty of room to add that in the area in front of the house, between the house and the driveway.
Yes.
Mr. Clooney, certainly we could make that a stipulation that wouldn't interfere with the proposed dwellings as they're depicted.
I think, and I could be mistaken, I'll have to defer to the other board members, but I think that's what we do. I mean, I know we did it on, I think we did it on the houses that we, there were 10 lots that were created on Station Street with no street creation. Because it's a through street, I just think it's beneficial for the safety of the folks. I can think of a few over there that have them, but certainly there's plenty that don't. So that's why I wasn't at this point suggesting a stipulation, but I think it might be a good idea.
Oh, that was a good suggestion, Mr. Colonian, because we have in the past asked for that, and all the ones on Station Street, the 10 of them all have hammerhead turnarounds. So for safety, I think I would definitely agree with that.
It's agreeable to the applicant. There's not, there seems to be room in both of the proposed lots to accomplish that.
I think it actually would add to the attraction of the property. I hadn't really thought of that, but I think it could be easily accomplished.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Anything else, Rick?
No.
Anybody else on the board? Can you pull that map down, Mr. Crossman? I can't see anybody on the board. Thank you. Before I entertain a motion, does anybody else on the board have any questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion on this project.
Okay, I found this on the web for Natalie Taylor motion on this project.
Sorry.
I don't think Alexa's going to make a motion.
My phone was going to make a motion.
Well, more welcome to it. Chairman, I'd like to make a favorable motion for a 2-lot minor subdivision without street creation or extensions. Owner applicant Joseph A. LaCroix, is that
Yes,
correct? Fairview Avenue, AP 80, lot 15, zone R20, lot size 1.23 plus or minus acres. Existing use is vacant land. The applicant proposes to subdivide the existing 1.23 acre parcel into 2 parcels. Give me a second. The applicant requests waiver for the following minor land development checklist items that are not provided at this time. Item 77, a physical alteration permit issued by the State Department of Transportation for any connection to or construction work within a state highway or other right-of-way. Item number 78, engineering analysis of the water system to establish that there will be no decrease in water pressure or supply to surrounding property owners, and that there will be adequate water supply and pressure to each new house in accordance with the building code. Item 91, an approved soil erosion and sediment control plan, if required, by the Coventry Soil and Erosion Control Ordinance. This plan shall be reviewed, approved, and stamped by the building official and/or town engineer. Potential for further subdivision, neither parcel 1 nor 2, once divided, has enough land area to be subdivided again into 2 parcels in the R20 zone. Adequacy of street, on the street, or which proposed lot fronts, the criteria has been met for proposed lot frontage. Access from lots for onto the street, the proposed lots meet this criteria. They are accessible for emergency service and physical accessible from the street upon which it fronts. There's no scenic highways. Both lots will conform to zoning. The 2-lot minor subdivision is generally consistent with the town of Coventry's comprehensive plan. The proposed residential development is in keeping with the adjacent uses. Lots have direct frontage on Fairview Avenue Road. Single-family homes are proposed for both lots once created. The comprehensive plan supports residential development in R20 zone, maintaining development that does not stress town services is a goal of the comprehensive plan, objective 1.9, which states development and implement a growth rate limitation program that is consistent with the town's capacity to accommodate new development and to provide services needed to support the development, including schools, roads, police and fire protection and recreation. The proposed subdivision shall be required to receive permits from RIDEM for an approved OWTS and the town engineer for soil erosion and sedimentation control permit, if requested. Strict adherence to the guidelines set forth in those permits should ensure that there will be no negative impacts to the environment. The development will comply with the town of Coventry zoning ordinance. The amount of traffic generated from a single-family house lot should be negligible. We had discussed adding a hammerhead to both lots for turnaround for safety of the persons in the homes and safety of people traveling on Fairview Ave. The Planning Commission grants the conditional primary approval subject to the following stipulations. The applicant shall receive an OWTS permit from RIDEM prior to the issuance of a building permit. The applicant shall receive an approved soil erosion sediment control plan from the Coventry Town Engineer prior to the issue of a building permit. The applicant shall receive a physical alteration permit issued by the State Department of Transportation prior to the issue of a building permit. The applicant shall submit the findings of an engineering analysis of the water system to establish that there will be no decrease in water pressure or supply to surrounding property owners, and that there will be adequate water supply and pressure to each new house in accordance with the building code. And that item was already discussed in the fact that the water pressure came back a little low between 20 and 24. The applicant is aware of that and they are further investigating that. And I would like to incorporate the planning director's report.
Done.
The applicant should be allowed to proceed to final plan approval.
Thank you, Mr. Kenny, for that motion. Do I hear a second?
Second from Carl.
Second from Carl Mattson. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I neglected to ask for final to be administrative in nature.
He just put it in his motion.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else? Okay, I'll do a roll call. Mr. Reyes,
Aye.
Mr. Kenny,
Aye.
Mr. Pacelli,
Aye.
Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Mr. Mattson,
Aye.
Mr. Ozakowski,
Aye.
Ms. Lukowitz,
Aye.
Mr. Clunian,
Aye.
Chairman Flynn also says aye.
Thank
Motion
you.
carries.
Thank you
Thank
to
you,
the
everyone.
board.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, last but not least, 8.5, pre-application for major land development, Coventry Subdivision, owners Coventry Realty LLC and Rockwood Realty LLC, applicant Revity Energy LLC, proposed 24 lot residential cluster subdivision, AP 85 lots 1 and 5.3 and AP 92 lot 1. It's zoned RR2 rural residential, and it's on Coventry Road. Anybody here representing the applicant?
Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, honorable members of the Coventry Planning Board. For the record, Attorney K. Joseph Shikachi, representing the applicant.
Hi.
How are you tonight? I don't know if the staff reads the report or if I can start my brief presentation, and I'll turn it over to my engineer, David Russo from Dupree Engineering.
Sure, why don't you continue?
Thank you. So, Mr. Chairman, honorable members of the board, this is a cluster development for 24 lots. We are requesting from the Coventry Planning Board. We're here for a pre-application this evening. I was not the attorney of record for the previous applicant on this property. That it was the same applicant, but it was a different attorney, and they were proposing a solar field. It's my understanding that after considerable amount of negotiation and attempts with the neighborhood and the board, that idea or that proposed development did not pass. They were informed or suggested to by the board, the neighbors, and everyone involved that the land was much more suitable for residential development. They have proposed this cluster development in accordance with the town rules and regulations. We are also going to be requesting some bonus lots per your ordinance, if that's within the board's purview. I would then now like to turn over to Mr. Russo, and he'll go through as the project engineer and the detail of the cluster development. It's a single family home development. We think this is much more compatible with the neighborhood and the surrounding area. So we would hope that the board would look favorable on this. We followed the guidance that was given to us in late 2019 regarding this property. And without any further ado, we'll be happy to answer any questions, but I'll defer to David Russo.
Go ahead, Mr. Russo.
Hi, good evening, board. My name is David Russo. I'm a professional engineer with Dupree Engineering. I was also the project manager when this application was moving forward through the solar development. So tonight we're here for a pre-application on a residential subdivision located on AP 85, lots 1 and 5.3, and a portion of AP 92, lot 1. The total area of the site is 50.87 acres. The properties are zoned RR2. The properties are located west of Coventry Road, and to the south is the Teakwood and Watercress neighborhoods. As Mr. Shikachi stated, this is the property that originally had a 5 megawatt solar development, but that application was denied in September 2020. The property is currently vacant. Most of the development area is wooded. I know a lot of the members did a site walk on this property. The north area of the development is cleared. There's no trees in that area. The wetlands on the site was flagged by Natural Resource Services and professional wetland biologist Scott Rabideau. The topography of the site is undulating, but it mostly pitches towards the wetland to the west. There was some site work, historic site work on the site that did create some undulations out there. The property has 2 frontage points on Coventry Road, and the applicant is proposing a 24 lot residential cluster subdivision. The access for that subdivision is being proposed on the northernmost frontage of the property. There's also a sliver of frontage on the southern area of the property. We're proposing 2 cul-de-sacs, and the 24 lots range in size anywhere from 23,500 square feet approximately to 1.78 acres. The project includes 25.4 acres of open space, which is approximately 50% of the total area of the site. and the minimum requirement in the town ordinance is 40%. And that density is based on two items. One was we were required to create a conventional yield plan, which shows a full development of the entire property, which meets the zoning requirements, which shows a total of 20 lots. And we also did the density calc for the cluster subdivision, and that density calculation came up to 21 lots. And according to the zoning ordinance, the open space, no more than 50% of the minimum required open space shall be unsuitable. And we've provided 77%. So we're above that minimum requirement also. And the zoning ordinance also allows the planning commission the authority to grant a density bonus. That bonus is 20%, where the minimum of 50% of the land of the original parcel is set aside for open space. So we have achieved meeting that 50% requirement, and the applicant is seeking that 20% bonus to get to 24 lots within the cluster subdivision. The lots will all be proposed to be serviced by Kent County Water Authority. They all will require individual septic systems, and those septic systems would require additional testing that we haven't done. That would be done in the future aspects of the project. So tonight we're here at a pre-application phase, just trying to get comments and feedback from the board. If this were to move forward, we would go to the master plan phase for additional comment and public comment. Assuming master plan is approved, at that point, the engineering on the site would take further place, and we'd complete testing. And at that point is when we start doing the hard engineering of the site to meet the DEM and the town requirements for drainage, utilities, septics. And that's when a lot of that engineering would take place. So we haven't done any of that. This is just a conceptual plan at this point to receive feedback from your board. Be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Thanks. I have many, but I'm going to let my board members. I just have a couple of quick ones before I ask my board members to comment. I noticed there's 4 lots that don't even have the 100-foot frontage. Lot 8, lot 7, lot 15, and lot 16. They don't have much frontage at all. It's 72 feet. One is close to 199 feet. One is 88 feet. One is 92 feet. I know when the solar array was in front of us, they did a conceptual plan the neighbors viewed that had 14 lots. Now we're looking at 24. We're looking at 24 total lots. I just wanted to bring up those points. So I'll open it up to my board members, but if you can answer the frontage.
So the frontage that you're speaking about, you rattled off a few lots. I caught some of them, but you know, the
15, 16, 8, and 7.
So those frontages, the ones on the cul-de-sac specifically, we're measuring that frontage at the setback area. So if you drew a chord across those, where that front setback is, you achieve that frontage requirement. Being on the cul-de-sac, the way the lots open up, they open up as you get to that frontage requirement. Lot 19, it's shown as 106 or 108, it's tough to read, but that might not include some of that curvature there too. That's probably closer to that. We were trying to achieve a minimum of, 115 to 120 on these lots, just to keep them, open, have some bigger space for the.
Lot 16 has 72 feet of frontage.
And that's at the property line. So at the property line of the cul-de-sac, at the frontage itself, if you measured a straight line across that frontage there, it's greater than 100 feet at the frontage.
Excuse me, Mr. Russo, if I'm not mistaken, that's allowed under the Coventry subdivision regulations. Is that correct?
I believe that's how the frontage is measured on a cul-de-sac. It's measured at the front setback area, because that does happen often on cul-de-sacs where the lots open up on that angular shape, and it's always hard to get the full frontage on the cul-de-sac, so most towns have that in their ordinance.
Mr. Flynn, if I may?
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Crossman.
Yeah, what Mr. Russo just alluded to, he's exactly correct. Along a cul-de-sac such as that, you measure at the front setback, that's where the frontage is measured. So even though on lot 16, it says 72 feet along the right-of-way line, if you go back to that dashed line, which is the front yard setback, that's where it needs to meet the 100 feet, and it states that in our ordinance.
Okay, thank you, Mr. I was just reading your report, and it said 100 foot of frontage, so I just wanted to clarify that.
Yes, I apologize. Maybe I should have, I should have put in my report that did not apply to cul-de-sacs. I will remember that for next time.
That's okay, Mr. Crossman. I just wanted to get that clarified.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll open it up to any board members that have any questions. I can't see. Can you take that map down, Mr. Crossman? I can't see anybody. Any board members have any questions for the applicant? Go ahead, Mr. Colonian.
I have a couple of questions on this yield plan. And again, I went back to the application for the solar array where the, and I think you said natural resource or Scott Rabideau or however, the wetlands was delineated such that, and I believe the testimony was made that the solar array had to be a certain distance away from the wetlands. They were clearly delineated on those plans, but yet on your yield plan, the roadway appears to just go right through the wetlands along the back of Watercrest. I think it's Watercrest Court, and then extends to get the extra, I guess there's 5, maybe 8 lots down there. And I'm just curious to what the likelihood or how realistic is it to expect this yield plan to actually be either attainable or at least attainable in a cost-effective manner, given the wetlands that exist. I believe the wetlands actually exist right through a lot that's owned by the town of Coventry that fronts on Watercrest Court that was deemed unbuildable at some point in the past.
So you are correct. The wetlands were flagged by Natural Resource Services. They do have a 50-foot buffer. This plan it's a yield plan. It's strictly for a density calculation. My understanding, and it is obviously a little bit more legal on the legal end, but my understanding when you're creating a yield plan, the financial aspect of it is, could you apply for a permit to DEM for that wetland alteration? You can. Could they put a bridge through there? You possibly could. The likelihood of it is nothing when it's typically not discussed when you're looking at a strict yield plan like this. So they could apply for that. It's potentially you could get it, but this is strictly just to calculate the density of the property.
A better way of saying it, and I agree with Mr. Russo, is the gross density. And obviously this is the highest amount that we could request, and it goes down based on the physical constraints of the property, including wetlands, including whatever other obstacles may involve water, septic systems, sewer lines, whatever had to be done. So he is correct in the calculation, but no one should go with the impression that it's 24 for sure. We have to do, as Mr. Russo said, in between a master plan and a preliminary plan, extensive engineering work. There's an actual pause in the permitting process, and a tremendous amount and significant amount of capital is expended by the applicant, and they try to, accommodate the requirements of the town to get as many lots as possible, especially with the fact that they did extensive engineering on the solar that didn't pan out.
Yeah.
So they're trying to recoup some of the expenses, and we're trying to meet whatever the requirements are of the town and DEM, and whatever else would limit the physical capacity of the property. 24 would be the gross yield, and it would go down from there. And that's the way we're looking at it for this purposes, for this hearing this evening.
But it is possible if you get the approvals, you could get all 24 lots.
It's possible.
It
it's possible. I don't want anybody here to go away with the impression that we are predicting that. There's other agencies, particularly DEM, which have to weigh in on that. And we're prepared to do all that, but we don't want to show a plan for 20 tonight and come back and say, oh, good, guess what? DEM said we can get 22 or 23 or 24. We want to show the absolute maximum this evening, and then we would work within all the parameters and all the requirements of the town and the state. And would likely get, hopefully, as close to 24 as possible. But that would be the maximum that we would be requesting this evening in this pre-application meeting tonight.
Yeah, and I have just two follow-up comments. Generally, when you have a subdivision like this with one access to I'll call it a collector road or a through street, there's a requirement that there be some alternate access in case of an emergency. In some cases, developers in this town have actually gone out, bought another property that fronts on the road, granted themselves an easement and resold it. In this case, you already have a 40-foot access point from Calvin Town Road into the property. Granted, it ends up right smack in the center of lot 7. But again, it's just a suggestion at this point. You may want to consider some alternate access. It doesn't have to be paved. It just has to be able to withstand an emergency vehicle getting in there. It can have a gate. It would only be used in emergencies. And the one I was referring to, actually, there's two. One's on Hornbeam Drive, and the other one is the South Pond, where there's one access into a subdivision that has an excess of 20 lots. And the board, mandated the second access point. Fortunately, in this case, there's already land owned by the developer. In those cases, they had to go out and somehow come up with the access. In one case, I think they had to do a little bit of a bridge rehabilitation. So if you could just take note of that. And then our public works director, I believe, also asked if there was some way you wouldn't have to actually build a roadway, but allocate or set aside to the town access to the north in the event the remainder of, I think it's Rockwood Realty's property, ever gets developed to residential, where they could ask that developer to then pave a connection between this proposed street and that subdivision. It just makes good planning sense. It also would help him achieve that same regulation for two means of ingress and egress to a collector road, as we just spoke about. And the lots up there appear to be sufficient in size that could be created. Again, we're not asking you to actually construct the street, but just to lay it out and dedicate it to the town.
So, Mr. Clooney, and thank you for that, because that is a very important point. And as I said earlier, I was just brought in this process. I believe that the current access goes through someone's using that. There may be some encroachment from some of the abutting neighbors. It would be our attempt as we move through this process to work with each and every one of those neighbors who have an encroachment so that we can come to an accommodation where everybody is made whole. We avoid litigation. We avoid force, everything. As many people like to say, I'm somebody who likes to try to work collaboratively with the neighbors in the neighborhood to try to resolve those issues. And we're cognizant of the request by the town for a second means of access to the development. And we have one that exists. We may look at alternative ones. We want to certainly do what the planning board wants. But in addition to that, we also want to be a good neighbor, and we want our neighbors to be good to us. So I think if we could, as this project proceeds forward, that is a discussion that has to be had individually with every one of those neighbors and the abutting development, as you pointed out. And we're not opposed to any of that. We just don't know what the results will that be. If the board were to, as we go through the master plan and preliminary plan and in between, put stipulations on that did that, we would obviously follow those stipulations, but that would require us to reach out and work with the neighbors, which we're ready, willing, and able to do.
Well, thank you. I guess, so you're referring to the 40-foot access that is currently owned by the applicant. There's encroachments there that would preclude physical access.
So like I said, I was just recently retained and they had other counsel before me. But yes, my understanding is that there are encroachments. There are several encroachments by the neighbors. And it's my policy when this has happened in the past with other projects, not only with this client, but any client, that we try to resolve those to everybody's satisfaction. The neighbors become happy, the client becomes happy, the town's happy that the neighbors are happy. It's a win-win-win across the board. Now, I haven't had any conversations with anybody. Wasn't even aware of the encroachments until like 2 days ago. So as the project moves forward, we're hearing, the purpose of this pre-app meeting is to get feedback from you. We put our cards on the table, the highest possible yield plan, and then we will work toward that goal with the town, with the neighborhood, with the planning staff, and with DEM, and to accommodate a reasonable, fair development that works for everybody. That's our goal.
Right. And correct, Mr. Chairman, correct me if I'm wrong. It's at this stage, though, that we make those suggestions, and when they come back from master plan, we're kind of looking for those adjustments at that point, not between master plan and preliminary.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the warm fuzzy feeling meeting.
Excuse me?
This is the warm fuzzy feeling meeting. I just have another suggestion too. I don't know where you're gonna put the snow in this project. Where the town's gonna put the snow. I know in past projects that we've approved, we've always had an area where the town can put the snow. I mean, if we get a lot of snow, where are you gonna put it? There is no area.
Those are cul-de-sacs, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's something we can look at. It's a great point. They are bigger lots, especially at the end of the cul-de-sac areas. So we can look at that though. That's a good point.
Yeah, I'm surprised the director's report didn't have that in, because a lot of times they do put that in on these cul-de-sacs. So they're so busy and there's nowhere to put the snow. So I would certainly take that into consideration also.
On their property.
Anybody else from the board have any comments?
Mr. Chair, this is Jay. I have a comment that I wanted
Go
to
ahead,
share.
Jay.
I just wanted to, I appreciate Mr. Shikarchi's honesty on the application and in depicting it what I would say is probably more realistic. Having worked in wetland permitting, I think this would be a very, very difficult project to approve. It would require a formal application. So I think they're been a little ambitious with their yield plan and subsequent calculation on the proposed plan. And I don't want to get too deep into this because we're pretty early stage here. But I would say I would not be in favor of approving a density bonus on this project. I think it's already probably a little bit tighter than I would prefer to see.
Thank you, Jason. I happen to agree with you on that.
And that was kind of my point when I looked at the yield plan. I was like, it was almost a stretch to get to 24.
Well, we would certainly, engineer it. We're not looking for that vote or that decision tonight. And if the engineering and the DEM and the wetlands, come to a lower number, then it's a lower number. Those are the physical constraints of the property. So at this point, we just want to, like I said earlier, put all the cards on the table.
I appreciate that, Mr. Sriracha.
You can please call me Joe.
Joe, appreciate that. Yeah, to me, it's just a lot. It's real busy. I know the lots are big, but seeing the length of the two cul-de-sacs, I just happen to agree with Rick and Jason on the bonus lots. I mean, you can propose them, but we'll see going forward. Anybody else from the board?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Go ahead, Mr. Kenny.
On lot 18, there's a note going off to the side that says, I can barely read it, but it says area to be purchased.
Yes, it's 5.67 acres to be purchased for lot
Okay.
18.
All right. I was just wondering, it's just for that lot? There's no other area along there that needs to be purchased, or does that affect lot 17 and 19 as well?
It represents the portion of the property to the north. So it's that bold or thicker red line, and then that dash red line. It's that whole area. That's what that's noting. Even though it's pointing to lot 18, it really denotes that whole area.
Thank you for clearing that up for me, Mr. Russo.
You're welcome.
So you'll be purchasing the 5.67 acres? Is that what you were saying?
Correct.
Okay.
Just for the board, again, just to refresh people's memory, if you recall, that was the lease area for the solar farm.
Right.
And apparently they've agreed to sell it to make the subdivision happen.
Thank you, Rick.
Any other questions from the board members?
Just a note. Hey, Rick, on Kevin McGee, he had written a letter on January 19th. And his first comment was about the second access.
Oh,
I don't know if you saw that or not.
yeah, I see it now.
Yeah, he was concerned about the secondary means of egress. I'm looking at it now too.
Yeah, and the other comment that's in here is between lots
8 and 11.
Could we have a 20-foot access to the open space so the residents could access that area?
Mr. Ruzzo, do you have a copy of the director's report?
I have seen it. Yeah, I mean, the comment about getting to the open spaces, we can add just a strip of open space to access it. And the other comments in regards to the secondary access and we can look at that. Obviously, Mr. Sakachi talked about the encroachments on the south, so that's something we have to look at before we submit the master plan.
And as far as access goes to the open space, we could easily do an easement that would accommodate that. So that's not a problem. We can address that with certainty. It's a good point, and we can show that at the master plan or preliminary plan.
Thank you. And I do like the fact that you do own the 40-foot right of way to get onto Coventry Road. So if you could incorporate another means of egress, that would be great. Just if there was a crash bar, just for what Rick said, for emergency vehicles, because this is a very large double cul-de-sac here.
And understanding that there's encroachment, and I understand that's a touchy issue, but I go along the lines too, is that it's your property. We got to make touchy-feely with all the neighbors, and I understand that as well. But they came out in force when this was going to be a solar array and had their piece, and it went in their favor. Now you guys are trying to do something beneficial with the land as well. So there's gonna have to be some give and take there, but I just look at it this way: it's your land, and if it's being encroached upon, you guys have the right to do legally what you need to do as well. So
thank you for that, Mr. Kinney. I appreciate it. The previous council has put people on notice. We'd like to work together. I think,
Understood.
as I said before, there's a win-win to be had, and all I can, and I don't know if we'll get there. I can just say that we'll use good faith to attempt to get there.
that's all we ask.
And Joe, the neighborhood spoke loud and clear that they would rather see a residential dwelling in their backyard than a solar array. So that's what you're trying to achieve.
Exactly. And thank you for saying that, because I wasn't the lawyer there, and I know sometimes forget that, but it was a very contentious previous application.
Anybody else from the board?
Mr. Flynn, if I may,
John, go ahead, Mr. Crossman.
would you mind at this point in time explaining to the people watching us this evening that this is a pre-application? There will be no questions from the public. It's just not permitted at this stage. but there will be 2 more meetings in the future. Could you just get into that for them, please?
Yes, just like Director Crossman said, that this is a pre-application. This is a concept. There's many meetings ahead. There will be public hearings. So there will definitely be a public hearing for people can voice their concerns.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
And I would like to state publicly, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, members
Not
of the
at all,
board, that,
Joe.
I'm sorry?
Not at all, Joe. Go ahead.
Thank you. That if any of the neighbors who are watching now and they have concerns, to please reach out to myself, Mr. Russo, or the applicant. We'd like to work with everybody. So if you're on here and you have questions, please, we'll try to answer them. We don't have to wait for the next hearing. That may be several weeks or even a month or 2 down the road. So we'd be willing to talk or meet with anybody. You know, obviously we have COVID, so we do it through email or Zoom calls or stuff like that. So we'll try to answer questions so that the next hearing, I know people don't have to show up and say, well, what's happening, what's going on, because they'll know. And that's part of the reason that we have this pre-app hearing, and it's in a public forum, open to the public to review.
Thanks, Joe. And I live in the area too, and they know where I live, and they certainly can reach out to me or our planning staff.
And the
So
plans
I
are on record at
appreciate
town hall. Mhm.
Yeah, I appreciate that. You were very formidable before and open to the public on the solar, so I don't see any difference on this plan.
Thank you.
Thank you much for that comment. Anybody else on the board? Yeah, I'm not seeing anything else. I think you've got a lot of input from this board moving forward. Anything you would like to comment before?
So I just wanted to ask about the bonus lots. I know 3 of you indicated you wouldn't. Is that because it's based on I guess the crossing through the wetland? Or if we could solve that problem, would that still be something that you would consider down the road?
Me personally, I think I think 20 lots is a lot for this project, in my opinion. I mean, I'm only 1 vote of 9, but I think bonus lots, there's not a lot of wiggle room on this plan. I don't know if Rick and Jason want to give any input, but I think us 3 agreed. If anybody else on the board would like to input, I think we all agreed that we're all leaning towards 20.
I agree around 22. 20's tough to get in there too.
Again, trying to speak objectively, I looked at the yield plan and I just thought it was unrealistic. I realized it was just putting it on paper, but the permitting and the money that would be required, plus the pavement cost and everything else to come up with the eight or so additional lots in there, which ends up being the basis for the calculation of the number of lots, is a stretch. And I realized that the 14 lots that was on the plan that was submitted when they were doing the solar array was intended as a minimum. Certainly, I wouldn't want to hold you to 14, but I think 24 is excessive. So I think, I think what we're looking for is maybe something in the middle that's based on the yield plan that doesn't involve crossing the wetlands, and then redo the calculation.
That is a common occurrence with yield plans, though. We run into that all the time with yield plans. I mean, you could have a really large property with a lot of wetlands that creates upland areas or pockets of upland areas throughout the site. And the only way to get to those areas would be to cross wetlands. So when you do a yield plan, you show these roadways going through the wetlands to access these upland areas. And then you're going to a cluster plan and reducing that to the best upland area. So I understand your point, the realistic, the cost behind it, but it's very common with yield plans to have those types of crossings shown.
And I'll have to take your word for it, because I don't know. Mr. Crossman has it written up that way in his report. Joe said the same thing. So, but I think the message that seems to be resonating here is that 24 lots in that area seems to be a little more than what some of the board members wanted, but we'll see where it ends up. As you said, you may do your calculations before you come back for master plan, start taking soil suitability or maybe some other things and say, you know what, we can't get 24 lots anyway. This is what we're going to propose. That's fine. If you come back with the 24, then we'll deal with it then.
Thank you.
And I think the surrounding neighbors understand that something's gonna go here. I believe they all understand that.
18 would be very nice.
Well, I appreciate that. As I said before, we'll have to see what the DEM, the soil suitability, the second access, the right of way, the town regs all yield, and we'll go through our process and we'll come back with some more engineering and a little bit, another generation of plans for the master plan, and then ultimately a final version of it before preliminary. But you were very clear on what you have an interest in, and we'll continue to work with staff to try to come up with the best possible solution that works for everybody.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate that. Anybody else before they go to the next step?
No,
I don't-
not to be too redundant, but I agree with many of my other members that it seems like it's a little bit tight to be asking for 24. The configuration with the double cul-de-sacs looks a little funny as well, but you know, we definitely need 2 points of egress. I don't know how they're going to achieve all this, but I know they got their work cut out for them.
Right, and as stated before, this is really the beginning of this journey, I should say. And I think you've got a lot of input from the board going forward. And yeah, you have to do a lot of calculations before you come back. So I hope that answered a lot of your questions.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you for your time, guys.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna move forward.
Thank you.
Think we're all set with this project?
There's no formal vote needed, am I correct?
No,
Okay.
no.
Well, thank you. I've known Russell Crossman for 30 years, and I've never got the warm and fuzzy from him. And I certainly didn't get it tonight from him, but that's okay. I still love him. Thank you.
My
Yeah, no
sympathies,
problem,
Joe.
Joe. Seen you on several meetings over the years. Thank you. Okay, before we adjourn, Russell, did you want to bring up anything as far as any planning business?
No, I'm good.
You're good. You don't want to talk about finding the fact?
Nope.
Okay. All right. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion
Second
by
it.
Mr. Mattson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Reyes. Mr.
Yeah.
Clunian?
No, I'm just saying hand vote. Let's just.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Good, everyone. Thank you.
Night all.